ahead and get started, and I will try to also keep an eye on whether folks are coming in. So I'm curious what you guys thought about these two chapters. Any thoughts?
Yeah, there were two chapters.
Yes, indeed they were.
Singles aren't as easy as
My overall thought
other
is
things.
that Sarah Anderson made a book out of a molehill. There, there isn't that much really, and she just sort of expanded it so much, and it's like, well, that's the same as the one before. Well, that's not different, It's like, so
Well,
that was,
and that was kind of the reason that we combined those two chapters
Mhm.
because we'd done singles and then we were doing singles again.
Yeah. So
So,
I went back and I tried something from a previous chapter that uh, sort of piqued my imagination, called Knop yarn,
uh-huh, yeah,
KNOP.
uh-huh.
But I did it with two strands rather than one, and I love the way it came out. Um, and then I jumped over to chapters 3 and 4, and I did three different things there. So
The knot yarn is the one where you kind of wind it back up and down, right?
yeah, you can make little bumps in it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so here's my stuff.
Okay, yeah. So, uh, yeah, how about if you share, Emily?
I would love to do that.
Okay,
Just have to
great.
figure out what's what here.
Hi, Wendy.
Okay,
Hi, Margot.
so for the knot
Hey,
yarn, I took a tan Romney, and then I had a black, um, very thin, no, dark brown, very thin spin, and some. I have this silk. Friend gave me this huge thing of
Mhm.
raw silk,
Ooh, fun.
and it's off white. It is fun. So that's what I did. So, oops, try not to break anything. So here is where's my
Ooh.
error. Anyway, so I gotta go over here. So I was spinning the dark and the light over the tan, and every now and then I would just find a knoppy space. I would knot the light, and then I would knot the. Well, this is the beginning. This is where it's just getting started. Um, keep pulling, keep pulling, keep pulling. Okay, so here's a spot where it's the I knot the dark brown back and forth.
Yep.
Back up.
So
Remember
what were
my,
all of these, were you
and this is not where I did white up and down.
okay?
So I went up and down. So it created, sometimes it created, I like it when it did these longer bits,
Right.
because when I'm knitting, then you just get to see it.
Oh, yeah.
Where the little bumps, like here's a longer bit of dark brown. Oh, there's my, I know where to look now. The dark brown. And so I like how that would wrap around. Later on, I did some shorter ones that were more just like a bead almost. Now I can't even find it. But anyway, so when I knit it up, my sample. I did
Nice.
Pretty.
this is a ribbing, then the stockinette and seed stitch. And I like the way it came out in the stockinette.
Yeah.
And nope, I've got the wrong sample. Wait a minute, shouldn't be any red. Oh, it's my best shining through. Oh, yeah, so you'll see the bumpy white here and there, and
Yeah.
you'll see the bumpy brown sticking out. So I think that came out really successfully.
So remind me, is that apply or were both things going the
well,
same
you,
direction?
you have, I use I'm a fat and thin bulky spinner, so fat singles comes naturally for me. And so I
Right.
had my Romney light brown, and then I was pulling that tight, and then I had the white and brown
Okay. So spiral yarn.
side. So, and then every now and then I just take one and go up and down, and then I take the other and go up and down. So that's the knot yarn. I like the way that came out. That would be a good way to improve a very boring, which this Romney was, very boring wool.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes I do that Actually, I think I did that with some Romney. I
Well,
just,
it's just, it's just a very boring wool.
right.
It's just very boring. So that was that. And where'd I lose my, oh, there's my bag. So then I went on to spiral yarns, and this did not work out well. This is, it was like of just my regular spinning
Okay.
wool, and then I used that same way, that Romney. And so I did my regular spun as the wrap. So I was holding that hard and then had the Romney going on it. And it totally uninteresting, totally, nobody would know it was something special. So it was like, okay, that's lesson learned. So then I took, yeah, this was fun. People give me weird yarn, commercial stuff to make hats for charity. And one of them was, and I used it all up in this, so I don't have much to show you, but one of them was this, or like black and brown color with sparkles and little nubbies.
Ow.
And I used that as my hold down yarn. And then I used then I wrapped it with spiraled it with the silk. But can you see what happened? It all went off on an angle. The process of doing the spiraling and the amount of twist in it just took it off on an angle. But it's really kind of, let's see if I can get it. It's, as you can see, the little orange nubbies poke out, and if the light was right and I could do it right, it actually sparkles a little.
Can you see a use for that at that angle?
I don't like. Well, I think you can just block it, right? You can just block it out. But what's neat about this super thin plus the silk is this would make a great summer top.
Oh yeah.
And to see, I made it quite airy.
Yeah.
It'd be a great summer top. But this is all I had of it, so this is all I could make was this much. But it's an idea that when you go to Goodwill, you see all this stuff all the time, and so I was, keep my eyes out. So I thought, okay, now we need to get more dramatic.
Right.
And so I made a super sloppy single, super sloppy,
Fun.
super sloppy, super slubby. And then I used a silk. Once again, people who dump things on me. It's an ugly goldish color, but it's like a rough silk. It's not a thread. It's more like a fingerling yarn.
Oh, it looks like maybe Erie silk.
I have no idea, but it's a kind of a weird gold. So I put it with some white I had, and that's what I made this. So with the trying to do the flame.
Yeah,
flame,
I tried that too.
Stuff. Anyway, okay, so here's my sample. At the bottom is bottom down here. This is garter stitch. Then there is stockinette stitch, and then what I really love the seed stitch.
Seed, yeah, that would make
because
a great
if you did a scarf
cowl.
out of that, then it's good both sides.
Yeah,
and so and the it's hard to see on this iPad, but you can see the big fat stitches are showing up throughout this. And this would be really fun vest or a scarf. It's not quite soft enough to be a cowl, but it would be interesting. So that's mine. That's what I did.
Did you enjoy any of those techniques?
Oh yeah, I enjoyed it. Like the brown and dark brown one that was a total flop was a good learning thing. Okay, I got to get more dramatic, and that's what I did here. Is I went first to the that designer yarn as my core, and did that one with the silk, and and then I thought, okay, I've got to go heavy handed here, and I made this really slubby white.
I love that one.
And it was really slubby white, anyway. And so it came out quite interesting. So whoops, this is my right side up. So So I think this will be a lot of fun to do some more. Get it closer, closer, closer. See how the big they jump out at you? I like that.
I like that too. Yeah, I
I
like
like
that.
how they jump out at you.
Yeah, it's a nice combination. It really sets off that color.
Well, it saves that horrible gold. And with this off-white, it's sort of like it makes it okay.
Emily,
Is it?
Emily, that gold is now retro. So
Whoa!
what you've got.
Harvest gold.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have that much. I couldn't make, I couldn't make more than a cowl out of it. I don't know. It's not that much. So I played with stuff I had hanging around.
Wonderful. All right. Who else spun? Who wants to share?
I'll go.
Okay, great.
The first one I tried was from book 3, and I used a merino with a warp from like a cotton warp. And I don't know if you can see. It's yellow with the blue cotton warps. And they're all spun the same direction.
Okay.
Can you see all right?
Yeah, yeah.
Is it coming? I can't tell if is that better?
I can do that. I'll make,
Okay.
yeah, I'll do that.
Um,
Nice.
it's coming through pretty well. I had a little trouble with this one where the blue warp kept wanting to double up on itself. And I had a really hard time doing both the warp with also getting the wool itself the right thickness, keeping it even.
Right.
Because like the warp kept wanting to go way too close on itself, and but generally I kind of like it. I think it'll spin up all right.
Is that a
And-
ply or did you do both strands at the same time?
Both strands at the same time.
Oh, okay.
So you did auto wrap.
Yeah. Yeah, it was all both strands at the same time going the same direction.
So were you drafting as you did that, or had they already been
I was drafting as I did that.
drafting
Tricky.
the gold one?
Drafting the gold one, and then the blue is just the warp, cotton warp thread.
Yeah.
So I had the cotton warp thread in my right hand, and then was drafting with my left, which I had a little issues with, but
Are you right-handed?
I'm right-handed.
Okay. Yeah.
And to try and draft, and it was just tricky on my hands.
It's a lot to do with that yarn, I feel. For what seems like a simple yarn to draft and wrap.
It's very difficult.
Was
And then the
was that
second,
what they called the wrap single?
yes.
Yeah.
And then I tried,
Ooh,
I got
beads.
some beads,
Oh, I haven't tried that yet. Oh, look at your beads.
Oh,
and I
beautiful.
used some Coriadale. Oops, there. Now you can see it. I used some Coriadale and spun both singles, and then I threaded the beads on. And then plied them together. So I have a bunch of beads. I think it would be an accent on something. I don't think it would be good to weave a lot or to spin a lot of or knit with a lot of.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine fringe or a tassel at the end of a scarf with that beads? That would be wonderful.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Mm.
Oh, yeah, I could that would probably work really well.
Yeah. Everybody would
Um,
wonder, how'd you do that?
Yeah. And then the third one I did, was I tried the spiral, one of the spiral yarns. I actually
That's
took
pretty.
Yeah.
this is the, oh, Greenwood Fiber Works yarn that I had last chapter.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be the thick and thin, or that is the thick and thin. And then I spiraled it with embroidery thread.
Pretty.
That's lovely.
And that's how this one came out this week. So, it spiraled pretty well. Again, I had, it's not easy to do. And I actually found that if I held on to the embroidery thread, and just let the, yarn just hang straight down and don't hold on to it at all, and just let the draw of the embroidery thread pull the yarn on, that it spiraled the best. If I tried to hold both and take control of how they were plying onto each other, it didn't work as well as if I just let them do their own thing and just let the wool wind itself on from just hanging straight down. So that was the lesson I learned on
Nice.
that one. So those are my 3 attempts for 3 and 4. I enjoyed actually I enjoyed the second 2 spins the best. The wrapped single was my least favorite.
Yeah, me too.
It's just too much for to do and at the same time.
Right. For what I didn't think it was a great result. I mean, I'm not necessarily looking for a consistent, but it was just um it was unpredictable
Yeah.
for me in a whole different way.
Yeah, I think I was able to completely pre-draft it somehow. I don't know quite how you could pre-draft the whole length, or whether you pre-draft it and then spin that bit and then pre-draft it and then spin that bit, whether that would work or not.
Hmm.
I'm not sure.
Always gives me so many things to think about, right?
Yes.
I have
Awesome.
a question. That and I haven't spun for this at all, so I haven't read the chapters, but I have several. I guess they're called blocks of Lopi wool that my husband brought back from Iceland one time, and
Yeah.
it's not spun, but it's just like that pencil. It's about the size of a pencil, and so it's pre-drafted
Oh,
apart very easily. It's like a big disc of it. And I'm just wondering if that would work, or would it, for this auto wrap single, or would it not, because it doesn't have any energy yet in it?
well, the idea of that auto wrap single is that you're drafting and spinning the one yarn while you're wrapping it at the same time. So I think that would be a good place to go, especially because it's basically pre-drafted.
Right. It is. It's totally pre-drafted. Yeah, but
Right.
it has no twist at all to it whatsoever.
Yeah.
So,
That's the nature of Lopi wool,
Right.
and you
yeah.
put the knitted
Right.
to that.
Right.
But
Yeah,
you could easily slub it
Yeah, this is a little
to
different
make
than
your,
Lopi wool. It's made by Lopi, but it's different, than their regular
but
wool.
you could do a single by slubbing it, making it, pulling it every 6 inches to be thin, and then you could do any of the spiral things with that.
Yeah, is this the puffy? The really super, it's like really thin roving, like I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But you knit it and you're supposed to knit it unspun and it makes
Yeah.
a super lofty sweater, but with lots of warmth
Yes,
to
it
it.
does. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have it with it. Yeah. Yeah, and you have to be careful because you can pull it apart very quickly.
That's,
Yeah, but you can
yeah.
also split splice it back together really fast or just lay it over each other, Wendy. It's totally unspun
Yeah, I
yarn,
did
so
knit
there's
a
no
sweater.
twist in it.
Yeah, I knit a full sweater with it, and it really is a very warm, lofty sweater.
Yeah.
I would think that would be
love it.
really
I've
fun to
made
play
several.
with these techniques.
I'll do that. Yeah, I'm really glad I joined in because it's giving me some ideas.
You know what, Wendy, though? That yarn, no matter how well or poorly I did it, was actually my least favorite yarn that we've done so far. Um, and sample it for sure, but the couple I didn't even bring them over to show tonight because I just hate them. I just
Yeah, I
it's
thought they were really messy looking.
yeah, yeah, it just didn't there was not it like sometimes messy can be beautiful because it
Right.
gives you texture or something like this. This was just weird. And I with each of the yarns, I tried to think of, okay, if I were going to make a bunch of it, what would I use it for?
Right.
Oh, right.
And this one, I like nothing came to mind. Nothing. So,
I'm right there with you.
yeah, it was, and I've kept thinking, is it just me? But then Teddy said, I'm not digging this one either.
I
And
wasn't a huge fan, but I'm glad I learned that. So
yeah,
did you spin stuff that you are going to share with us, Catherine?
I did.
Okay.
Want me to?
Yeah, let's see.
So, well, I'll go because Kristen used those big, gorgeous beads. I'll show you my beads, which I posted a picture of before. Mine were I just had these in the house. So, I actually had a thinner Romney single. I threaded the beads onto just sewing thread, and this actually, after I got the Ethel and Lucy part of it over with, this was actually my favorite one to do. In fact, there are two little skeins here because I made one and then I still had a few beads left. So I made a second skein. But I'll show you one of the things I've been trying to keep up with to fairly successfully is I put a warp on the little loom and I've been doing just a few rows with each of the yarns that we've made. And
Wonderful.
as you can see, you'd really have to plan out these beads to get it I would, what it taught me is I will never use this for weaving, but I could use them to like knit on the edge. I'm making some fingerless mitts with a bunch of stuff I got from the Deb Robeson class. And so a little bit I have to sample it and see how they knit. But this actually turned out to be a lot of fun to make.
I love it in that weaving just the way it is.
Well, thank you. Thank you. But like here, there's none.
Right.
Here, and then here there's a big cluster, and here there's and it was a real pain in the butt to weave because the beads get caught on the
Right.
warps. So you know how you can
You
put
have to
like
use the shed stick.
but I had to redo it going both, like I didn't have two shed sticks in there. That's a little too much.
Because they can't.
So
pass
I
one
had to
another.
open a shed, run it through, then create
Pull
the
it.
other shed and run
Yep.
it through.
Yep.
And I mean, that wasn't too bad. But the other thing I'll talk about while I'm here is this was a really pretty spiral yarn. I enjoyed the spiral yarns
I love
too.
the texture and the weaving.
Yeah, it came out great. But what it didn't come out with, and I didn't think about this at the time, was the so the white is still this Romney. I'm just using this Romney as like my control group
Yep.
because it spins. I don't have to think about spinning it. It's easy.
Right.
This gray, Teddy, you won't remember this, but you sent me a sample of Magic Chico, the
You remember.
the goat that jumped the fence.
Well, we
And
think so, but we never saw it.
uh, and the sample was mostly gray,
Right.
but what I learned was he was gray and light gray and white. So the
Oh.
spiral, you can see where it's dark,
Sometimes, uh-huh.
but sometimes it's light. So
Oh.
if I was going to use this for more weaving, I just need to know that and not expect this was another spiral that I did.
Sure.
I did a lot of stuff this past week to clean off bobbins. So this was the same Romney around some mystery single on some bobbin.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this one, I would get brown and white every time.
Sure.
With this one, it's, you're going to get what you're going to get.
Right. But that
Um,
inconsistency might be interesting woven up.
Absolutely.
You
It's
never
just
know.
like knowing it's so, I mean, we say this all the time, but you make a yarn and then you knit with it or you weave with it and you get a result that you weren't expecting,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
The
And it's
other
nice to
thing,
know, even if it's varied, what to expect for sure.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The other one that I didn't think I was going to like, but I did like, were the felted singles. And it just made a nice yarn.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought, why would I want to do that? And in the weaving, it's way at the beginning. And I just did plain weave.
Yep.
I did what, 2 rows of sumac down here. But mostly I wanted to see how they presented in the most basic
Yeah.
weave.
How did you
So
felt them?
how did I felt them? I put them, oh, I know. After I spun the single, hot water, then a plunge into cold, really cold, like ice water. Then I went back to the hot water again, and I actually just kind of zhuzhed it between
Okay.
my hands, but constantly kind of combing it so it didn't felt to itself.
Uh-huh.
And again, I made this much.
Right.
If I was doing a sweater's worth of this, that wouldn't be sensible.
Right.
But the effect of it almost was like a Lopi wool,
Yeah.
because it's got that the Icelandic, has a little bit of coarseness to it, and this is and this Romney is. I don't know. I bought the fleece so many gazillion years ago. I have no idea, but it's a medium wool for sure. It's not skin soft, but I was really pleased, and I was also doing some with this multicolored skein,
Ooh, yeah.
and I did that too. Now going forward, I haven't done any more tests on this roving,
Is that
mostly
felted as
because.
well?
Sorry, it felted well too. It's Falkland.
Oh, okay.
It's
Single
Falkland.
single wool.
Single felted.
Okay.
Yep.
But I
Yep.
mean, it's just Falkland, it's nothing else.
Nothing else.
Okay.
It's it was a braid from Ellen
Yeah. I
sometime.
like that too.
Yeah, I like the texture of both of them quite a lot. Quite a lot. I've been doing mostly just the white Romney. Well, because I just got back from a long trip and that's all I just did what I could do. The last thing I'll show is I did a little tiny bit of GIMP just because
Oh, yeah.
I had 2 bobbins.
Can you
And
put it in front of your hand? Yeah. Okay. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, and it's fine. What I found in the little weaving was it seemed to be either overplied or overspun when I wove with it, but not when it's just hanging around.
Huh.
So I don't know. It's a mystery wrapped in an enigma.
That's interesting because sometimes when I weave, I'll have to hold the yarn so it can so there must be something about how we weave that either adds or subtracts twist.
Yep. And the only way that it was like got a little kinky was going from left to right, not from right to left.
Huh.
So, let me say one other thing about the beads, and that is beads make things heavy. This is really thin yarn, and it's way heavier than you would expect.
Yeah.
And these are just little glass beads. I mean,
Right.
and maybe that's why they're heavy because they're glass, you know. Anyway, that was my little adventure.
Awesome. I love that you were surprised and enjoyed the felted yarns.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a surprise. And then doing the beads, when you get the little thing going, it's almost like it's like a game.
Right.
Can and I really tried to get them about 3 inches
Okay.
apart. And if I did more, I might even put them closer if I
Okay.
could manage it. Yeah. Anyway, so there's my story.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. I'm still trying to figure out how to do this. Here we go. Yay. Technology. All right. Anybody else who's spun who would love to share? All right. Well, I spun. I'll share. So my plan was for this to be that flame yarn. So it is alpaca. Let's see. It's a Roleg from Natalie at Hidden Pastures. The Rolegs are farm alpaca, fine wool, silk, bamboo, and sari silk. And it was a Roleg. And I sometimes I have a hard time not spinning the whole braid. So the Roleg was perfect. It made this much yarn. It would be enough for a little weaving, and there was a good stopping point. And then the thin part is a never-ending cone. I don't know where it went. It was somewhere. Oh, here. It's a never-ending cone of, I think it's Cotylene. And I have used this for core spinning and coil spinning. I think I bought it from Sandy Kunith 10 years ago. And I just keep I'm never gonna finish it. It will be my Mr. Megorium's shoes. But what I have to remember is that's not a really strong yarn. And I'm kind of tough on stuff. So I just have to remember that. But I enjoyed this process. I had to keep going back and looking at the book because it didn't make logical sense to me that the thick yarn would wrap around the thin. I just kept thinking it should be the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, really? And then I'd sit down to do another yarn and but it worked and it made sense. And I haven't finished this yet, but I will. And then a lot of the rest of what's going on, I have I'm spinning another Roleg. So this is kind of a dark purple and a black. I think the black is alpaca, same Rolegs. And then I'm going to, so this is a thin, which I'm still working on. And this is going to be the thicker one. And then I'm not decide exactly what the technique, but it'll be some kind of spiral technique. And then the one I think I did Oh, I might have done it for a Farm and Fiber, not a Wafa thing. Of an Erica, I'm still spinning that one. But then I did this maybe, I don't know, sometime last year, and I just thought I'd share. So these are felted singles, kind of a thick and
Wow.
thin single. And then I did the ombre dyeing with an indigo bat. It's that Erino, so it's maybe 75% merino, 25% Erie silk.
Huh.
And it doesn't, I have spun it, I am spinning it thin right now, but it likes to be thick and thin. So it was a fun spin.
That's beautiful.
And I plunged it.
Oh.
Not a lot because it's merino and I was a little worried about it sticking to itself.
Mhm.
Um, but it was really fun. And parts of it are overspun. Um, but it was just kind of a fun no-brainer spin when I did it. So this was an interesting group. I'm glad we did the two chapters together. I think I would have been disappointed maybe if we had done just the first one and I hadn't loved that auto wrap and then, but those are good things to learn. And I love those spiral yarns. They're fun.
Mhm.
I'm a little worried about I don't necessarily want to felt this one, so I'm gonna see, what happens when I finish it without felting it. Um, and I worry a little bit about because that, I guess the cord, the thin one, isn't particularly strong. I worry a little bit about weaving with it, but we'll see what happens. I'll probably use a shed stick and so I don't have to drag it across. Um,
I
so
found that the when I did the spiral, just like that black and brown one, but just sort of not anything dramatic. It sort of disappeared when I knit it. It just, once you did the knit stitch, it just you didn't see the character of the yarn at all.
the
When you got
spiral.
when you got to the spiral with just a sort of semi-spiral, just a sort of ordinary spiral. So
Yeah.
when I went to do the flame, when I did the flame spiral, that's the one that really was interesting. That became quite interesting.
Right, because not only is it a spiral, but it's a thick and thin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it shows up. You can see there's character in the yarn when you're knitting with it. But it's otherwise I kind of when I ply, I'm always doing spirals without knowing it because of my thick and thin style of spinning. And so, and when I knit, you can't tell it was spiraled. It's just because of the loop and
Yeah.
like the loop in knitting, it doesn't show it.
Right.
So
I found that go ahead.
I like doing something that shows the character. I didn't do the felting because I thought it wouldn't show up very well as the character of the yarn. So and I don't weave. So
Yeah. I had to think not only about the fact that the big yarn was wrapping around the little, but that Kristen talked about how she just let it go. And
yeah,
there was kind of a halfway place for me because if I didn't, because I do so much coil yarn,
okay.
that is my go-to. And I had to and so the thought process there is that you're covering everything. And I really had to think about not, allowing that other yarn to show through. And it took a light touch.
Yeah, and I found that when I tried creating the spiral, holding both of them, that I ended up with a coil, not a
Yeah.
spiral. And the only way I could get it to spiral was not touch it at all.
Yeah. I
And
had
just
to
hold
really back off
Yeah.
yeah,
and let it do its thing.
and let it do its thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Catherine, I want to ask you because Emily talked about how it behaved in knitting. When you had those, it's a little hard to see just because of the technology. Can you see that the spiral yarns are spiraled in the weaving?
Well, that's part of like the Magic Chico bit of it. So where he was gray, I
Oh.
can see it.
Yeah.
And the angle is consistent. So there's, so it's in every row, it's going from, the same slant. Where the fiber was lighter, it just looks like plain weave.
Okay.
It doesn't. So I think if I were going to use a spiral yarn in weaving more, I would make the spiral more dramatic.
And consistently.
Yes, like the one um now they're all tangled up. This brown and white
Right.
one. I think I would do something more dramatic change from one to, because the other spiral I made is with the multicolored yarn.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some silk, that hand spun silk singles, and I spiraled around it. And to me, one of the biggest revelations of this project so far is what you've said a couple times, Teddy, to spiral the thicker yarn around the thinner yarn. That made no sense to me at all.
Yeah,
And
right.
and then it's like a miracle. It works,
Right.
But see, again, this looks like some kind of spiral,
Right.
but and I haven't woven or knitted or done anything with this yet. I just that's how much I got done. I mean, after I do this, I figure with this thing, I'll fill it up and then I'll put a different warp. Of course, then we might be up to spin to weave, but it says this is my moment to say save Gira.
Oh.
Every time I'm spinning now, I'm like, oh, I hope she's okay.
She bounced right back after having 7 babies.
Well, it was more you said about
Oh.
whether you were going to keep her or not.
Oh. Well,
And
I think the jury is still out. I can only keep 10, but I would not breed her.
yeah, I
And
get it.
and you really can't fix a female sheep. So I don't feel like I can sell her either because I wouldn't want someone to breed her.
Yeah.
That's just too
And
many.
you know what? She's your sheep.
No,
But
I know.
she's your sheep, but she's my spin.
Right. Well, and I think, to think about keeping her the next year, last year she had 5, she lost them all. She was kind of still in crisis when I bought her. And then, she did grow 7 babies, even though only 2 made it. So I've never had fleece from her during a year that she hasn't been stressed.
Mm,
So if I don't breed her next year, when I don't breed her next year, it will be
yeah.
very interesting to see if her fiber is different.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
And I'll take this one step further and then stop talking about it. But the other thing was both her fleece and Abby's fleece
Mhm.
were prepared the same way. So there wasn't that much distinction
Oh.
in the spin. They were both, it felt very similar to me, but it's because each one was so beautifully combed
Yeah.
and then carded that I was working in they seemed very similar to me.
Right.
Now, the other 2 bats that I have, one has mohair in it and one is Shetland.
Right.
So I'll have a whole different experience there. But
Well, and that makes me think that when I say she has coarse fiber, I think about what it feels like and what it looks like on her. Maybe not what's in the bag. So, I need to maybe go back.
Yeah.
And I love
Yeah.
the Morit, and I guess I have a Morit rant. But anyway, we digress.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So
No, that's great.
that brings up something with me.
Yeah.
Is that I was able to make that big sloppy, slubby single by doing it from locks. I didn't do it like you said.
Oh.
The preparation could change it. doing it from locks was easy because you pulled the lock out and then it was skinny. And you pulled the lock out, it was fat, then it was skinny.
Right.
So it worked out really well using locks rather than using a roving or a comb top. So
Right. Well, and it was interesting. As I was spinning today, because the thin single that I'm spinning is going to be, the thin single. And then I'll spin the other one thick. But I don't generally think about spinning my own ply unless it's like a balanced ply, I guess. So, I think about using thread or some other commercial yarn I have, or I don't know, something maybe I'm trying to get rid of. I don't necessarily think about preparing both of those yarns. So that will be an interesting, and I worry that that single that feels really and looks really thin right now is not going to hold the twist unless I felt it, So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And I find that I didn't think I had a hard time spinning thick, but I do. So, they have to be really two different weights of yarn, and I'm going to have to really think about that.
well, that's my two most successful spiral spins were ones where they're very different weights,
Right.
as well as different colors. Like Catherine was pointing out that if, depending on how you use it, whether you're knitting or weaving, to have white on white or something pale on white. Like a lot of Sarah's illustrations are pale blue or pink. It's like
you can hardly even see the difference.
You use something dark.
Right.
Yeah, because you use the black there. Yeah, right.
Anyway,
You know what, Teddy, though, there is a place where you do what I've seen you do a fair bit of, which is chain plying, which is where your preparation is both, is the ply
Right.
as well as the single.
Well, and remember that I consciously chain ply commercial yarn as well.
Oh, okay.
Thousands of yards of that lace silk because I like it chain ply,
Yep. Yep.
What a lesson, and why would you do that? Anyway. All right. So there's some other folks out there that may not have spun. So I would love if anybody has any other thoughts about these kinds of yarns. I would love to have that conversation.
Well, I've got some wool that I've been spinning on and off for the last, I don't know, couple of months. Of course, I was gone for some of that time, but there are some Rolegs that I found in my studio when I was organizing. And I've had, Rolegs can kind of get felted if you don't spin them, they sit around. But anyways, I made them from merino, Corriedale, and mulberry silk.
Okay.
And so I've only got this much left. And they're the natural colors of the, what did I say, merino and Corriedale. So they're kind of gray and grayish. Yeah. And then it's red silk. And so what I'm coming up with is a fun, and I've already spun it. It's a single, and it's kind of it's on the thinner side, and I know it will bloom, so it'll get a little thicker. But I was going to chain ply it, but now I'm thinking maybe what I'll do is, I maybe felt it as a single.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
And so then what I would do is once that's felted, then I would use it as my thicker yarn with a thinner thread. Is that what you guys have been doing?
I don't know.
Well, the yarn that we felted was a single.
It wasn't. Okay.
It was implied.
Right.
This one is a single.
Yeah. So this is a single, and I won't do any. This is it. That's how I'm going to use it.
Okay, but when you spun that as a single, it was kind of thick and thin?
Yes.
Okay. And so I'm kind of curious about how this rather thin single would work out.
Yeah. Well, and it might, I think trying that would be very interesting. I don't know if you would have to felt it, but it will act differently because you will set, whatever that is. And
Right.
then the twist can be much less because it's stuck together.
Right. And then just use it as a single then.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
absolutely could. Or you could do something else with it. It won't, obviously it won't ply in the same way if you ply it as a felted single.
Right. Of course. Right. Yeah.
But what an interesting adventure. The thing that I didn't get to this time was those energized singles, and I really want to do that. I just didn't have time to spin and size but I look at those collapsed scarves, they're like gauze, and I really want to make those.
Uh,
That's like, on my list.
I know, I was hoping that you had gotten to it because I keep thinking about it, and it's another one of those things where I think, why would I want to do that? But the picture, if that's a texture that appeals to you, there's a
Yeah.
good reason to do
Yeah.
it.
For sure. What an adventure. And it could be really great or really bad. But I'm also going to need like a PVC
yeah.
Yep.
nitty naughty or something, because I'm not sticking my wooden nitty naughties in the solution. So,
Well, and if you were going to do a scarf, you'd need a lot of it.
Right.
You'd need a fair bit.
right. Yeah. Well, she did say that you have to leave room, so you warp like an inch and then you leave an inch and then you warp an inch and
Okay.
so you're using essentially half the yarn and then you weave an inch and then
Yeah.
you weave a piece of paper through that's an inch wide
Right. I
so that it
remember
can
that.
truly collapse on itself once you wet finish it and the sizing goes away.
Yeah, I
So-
gotcha.
That's going to be a whole adventure
Yeah.
sometime when I'm
That you should do that at a fab some year. That could be
that would be a fun class.
yeah.
That would really be a fun class. Energized singles feel like they're tricky for me because capturing that energy, like taking it off the bobbin, you lose energy, and I mean every time you move it to something. So, I mean, really, I think it has to be quite overspun.
Yep.
So-
Well, and I was just flipping ahead to the next chapter, and there's a fair bit of it in there where you're applying a Z to an S
Right.
instead of a Z to a Z.
right, in
So
a
somebody's
direction.
going to end up with a lot of energy on one ply and less on the other.
Right.
I was also interested in maybe trying the hawser. And that's
Yeah.
two Z's together and then S. So it'll, that's the same thing, the energized
Right. Right.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I had to go back and read the directions on that one so you're adding more energy to one and less to the other.
First step, you're adding a lot of energy. Second step, you're reducing it. But I think it'd be better, like again, she's doing her examples with pale pink and pale blue.
Right.
I think something like that would be a lot more interesting if it was some of these really like flannel cakes colors. Was a really dramatic braid or something you're going
So
to
is it like a opposing ply
So
where you're
it's
doing like, because I just did,
right, they are opposing plies.
okay, so what I just did was a 3-ply. And I did 2 singles in this regular, so is that what? That's a Z.
Yeah.
And then 1 single in the S. And then I applied all 3 singles together in the S.
Right.
I think
And
in her book too. I think she's.
What, Emily?
I think that's in her book too.
Yeah, that's the next chapter.
Yeah. So Margot, how'd it come out?
well, it's supposed to be really energized. And after I washed it and I snapped it, I did not weigh it down. when it was drying.
Mhm.
The thing is I'm going to see how it knits up,
Yeah.
because it's supposed to have a lot more stretch in it once it's knitted up.
I wonder if
Um,
you'll get a slant to it.
no,
No?
there shouldn't be a slant in
Okay.
it. But and maybe it's the fiber I used, which could very well be that it's got some stretch. It's got some stretch in it, but not as much as I expected
Okay.
in the washed yarn.
Huh.
So you can see that in part of the yarn, you can see that I don't know what, they're not really curly cues, but you can see where it's energized. But like I said, the biggest thing is once I knit it up, I'm going to see if it's got more stretch in it.
Yeah.
In the book, it's called Multiple Opposing Plies.
Yeah.
Exactly what she's doing. Page
Yeah, I think that's
120.
interesting. Plus, that chapter has cable things. I love cabled yarns. So I'm excited about that too. And that will be interesting with opposing plies.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have any thoughts? Yeah. All right. So next week we'll kick off chapter 5, which is the opposing plies. And then the following week, I think, is the festival.
It is.
All right.
Yeah. So when just ballparky,
Yes.
when would the chapter 5 equivalent of tonight be?
So the kickoff is usually a week before the show, and
Right.
the show and tell from the other one is the week before that.
Okay.
Okay. Without, I don't think there's any exception to that until we get maybe into the holidays.
Okay. No,
Because-
I might, it might be 2 o'clock in the morning where I am, or 1 o'clock in the
Oh.
morning at our next Zoom. So
Right.
I might just post pictures.
Maybe. Yeah, July is busy, but there's no July show, so that's not a
That's right.
problem. And August is the
It'll
flea.
be right before Fab. Like a week
The
before
week
Fab.
before Fab, yeah, but that Fab weekend
Yeah.
doesn't.
I might be home. I might be home by then. Okay, good.
All right. Thanks you guys for joining me and being on this adventure. It is so fun. I'm just really loving seeing what everybody is doing.
Me too.
All right, we will see you next week. Next week for the kickoff. All right, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.